Hello guys, my name is Prince and this is Math Center. Subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos. Post your comments and questions on my social media handles and I'll respond to it. We are on the topic vectors. In the previous video, we studied equal vectors and we learned how to solve some questions under equal vectors. In this video, we are going to learn about parallel vectors. What are parallel vectors? Two non-zero vectors are said to be parallel if one is a scalar multiple of the other. What does this mean? This means that if you have a vector, let's say vector x, and the coordinates are a, b, and you have another vector which is vector y, and vector y is a scalar multiple of vector x. Now you can see that we are using this scalar k to multiply the components of x, a, b. So vector y, which is the scalar multiple of vector a, will give us ka, kb, because when you do this, you use k to multiply a and you use k to multiply b. So you get ka, kb. We say that these two vectors, x and y, are parallel vectors. So if one vector is a scalar multiple of the other, that is, you got one vector by multiplying the other vector by a scalar, a number, then we say that these two vectors are parallel vectors. I hope that is clear. So here vector s is ab and vector y is k times ab, because we got vector y by multiplying vector s by a scalar or a number. We say that these two vectors x and y are parallel vectors. Let's learn more about parallel vectors. Remember that as we said under multiplication of vectors by scalars, the scalar can be positive or negative. If the scalar is positive, it means that the two vectors will move in the same direction. If the scalar is negative, it means that the two vectors will move in opposite directions. But how do we find parallel vectors? How do we know that two vectors are parallel when they are being given to us? Here we are saying that if s is ab, vector s is ab, the components are ab, and the components of vector y are cd, and x is parallel to y, or x and y are parallel, then if you divide the s component of this vector by the s component of this vector, the value that you get should be the same as dividing the y component of one vector by y component of the other vector. Hope that is clear. So if vector x is parallel to vector y, then if you divide a by c, you should get the same answer as dividing b by d. Let's pick some examples and solve. You are supposed to investigate whether the following vectors are parallel. We are investigating whether these two vectors are parallel. And the second example, we are finding x if these two vectors are parallel. Let's pick the first one. Investigate whether 28 and negative 15, negative 6 are parallel to each other. As we said, if 28 and negative 15, 6 are parallel to each other, then 20 divided by negative 15 must be equal to 8 divided by negative 6. If they are parallel, then these two fractions must be the same. The x component here divided by the s component here should be the same as dividing the y component by the y component. So let's first find 20 divided by minus 15. That will give us minus 4 over 3. If you punch this on your calculator, you are going to get minus 4 over 3. If you punch 8 divided by minus 6 also on your calculator, you will see that you get minus 4 over 3. So it means that 20 divided by minus 15 is the same as 8 divided by minus 6. So we can say that since 20 divided by minus 15 is equal to 8 divided by minus 6, the two vectors are parallel to each other. Let's take the second one. We are supposed to investigate whether these two vectors are parallel. But we know that for these two vectors to be parallel, then 2 divided by minus 4 should be the same as minus 6 divided by minus 12. So first, we find out what is 2 divided by minus 4. That will give us minus 1 over 2. Minus 4 divided by minus 6 divided by minus 12 will give us 1 over 2. Now look at something. The first one, which is 2 divided by minus 4, so 2, the s component here, divided by the s component here, 2 divided by minus 4, is giving us minus 1 over 2. But the y component here, which is minus 6, divided by the y component here, which is minus 12, is giving us 1 over 2. These two numbers are not the same. Minus 1 over 2 is different from 1 over 2. And because they are not the same, we say that since 2 divided by minus 4 is not equal to minus 6 divided by minus 12, the two vectors are not parallel to each other. So for the two vectors to be parallel to each other, the s component divided by the s component should be the same as the y component divided by the y component here. I hope that is clear. Let's take the other question. Find the value of x if 12x is parallel to 8, 6. We know that for two vectors to be parallel, for these two vectors to be parallel, then the s component here, which is 12, divided by the s component here, which is 8, must be equal to or is equal to the y component here, which is x, divided by the y component here, which is 6. The question told us that the two vectors are parallel. So we know that 12 divided by 8 is equal to x divided by 6. We have a linear equation here. We can solve it for x. So here, this linear equation involves fractions. When we are solving linear equation that involves fractions, we said that you find the LCM and you multiply the terms in the equation by the LCM. The LCM of 8 and 6 is 24. So you multiply the left hand side by 24, you multiply the right hand side by 24. When you do that, you can see that 8 will cancel itself 1 and cancel 24 6 times. 6 will cancel itself 1 and cancel 24 8 times. Now you are going to have 6 times 12 is equal to 8 times x. 6 times 12 is 72. From algebra, we know that 8 times x is 8x. How do we find x here? We know from linear equations that you are going to divide both sides by 8. And when you do that, x is equal to 9. So using the principles of parallel vectors, you have been able to find x as 9. One thing you need to remember under parallel vectors is that if two vectors are parallel, then it means that the s component of the first one divided by the s component of the second one will give you the same answer as the y component of the first one divided by the y component of the second one. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Subscribe by clicking on the subscribe button below. In the next video, we are going to study another important thing under vectors, which is perpendicular vectors. Bye-bye.